Let's take a look at a Lithgow Short LE Mark III Grenadier's rifle. Hi everybody, this is Cycle Camp. We're going to do a quick video today on one of the firearms I picked up in Tulsa here at the April 2019 Wanenmacher show. This is an interesting little gun. It's not terribly significant, but I thought you might enjoy hearing a little bit about it. This is an Enfield Mark III. It's an SMLE, but back in the day, they didn't mark them that way. They marked them SHT-LE for short Lee Enfield. And the reason this gun is interesting, first of all, it's 100 years old this year. It's a 1919, and second of all, it is a Mark III asterisk, which means it's a later model Mark III, and it has some differences than a regular Mark III. Some of them are pretty obvious to anybody that knows them, which I didn't know before, but now I know it now. And it also is a Grenadier's gun. This gun was specially reinforced to run grenades. So let's take a look. First, as with most Enfields, if you look at the wrist strap here, on the right at the end of the pistol grip at the back of the action, that's where all the details are on what the gun is. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this. It's not the best lighting in the world, but up at the top you can see an A and a star. I think that's because this is an Australian manufacturer, and under that you can see the word Lithgow, which is the Lithgow arsenal, and then underneath that you see the in the shield you see Lithgow, then you see the SHT-LE, and below that you see the 3. And if you look at the top of the 3, right on the top left corner, you can just barely make out the asterisk. Okay, and then underneath is the date, 1919 date. Okay, now one of the big changes with the 3 asterisk is right in this area here, there is usually a cutout, a magazine cutout, where you can pull that out, and you can single load rifle rounds in this without having to try to pick anything up from the box. And back in the old days, that was thought to be a good idea when the enemy was really far away and you were just lobbing shells at them for grins, I guess. You could single load this and keep your magazine fully loaded, not have to worry about it. That way, when they charge you or rush you or whatever they were doing, you could just push that back in and start grabbing the rounds in your magazine. Lee Enfields have detachable magazines, but they are not meant to be used that way. They're actually meant to be used with this loading tower. You see this circular tower here on the top, and it has cutouts for a stripper clip, so that those stripper clip cutouts are what makes that run. The Lee Enfield is a cock on close, so if we bring this forward, you'll notice here at the back where the big square tab is, it's actually the back of your striker. When you push the bolt forward, you'll notice that is when that gets hung up, and by the action of the gun, and you'll see now that it's in the cocked position, and that big square thing is way back, and you have that metal rod in the way. If you want to safely close one of these guns, bring the bolt back, squeeze the trigger as you are running the bolt forward, and drop the bolt, and that safely allows you to uncock the gun. These guns, instead of having a tab on the side where you could pull the bolt out, the way these work is you open the bolt, you bring it all the way back, and once the bolt is back, there's this piece here of the bolt that comes in back of the tower for the stripper clips, and that piece will, if you give it enough oomph, will pop up, and there's a slot cut in the channel on the side here, and you match it up to that slot, and then you give it a good pop, and now you can pull the bolt out. So it's a very simple bolt mechanism. That did change on later iterations of the firearm. To put it back in, you do just the opposite. You bring it in, you push it down, you give it a good push till it snaps in, and now you can slide it forward. All that good stuff. There is a safety on the back side of the gun. It's a great big toggle handle type safety. When you pull it, it actually physically disconnects the trigger. So if I was to bring the bolt back and cock it, and then with the safety in the rear position, the trigger goes all the way to the back of the trigger guard, but it does not. It's not connected to the sear, so it will not drop the sear engagement. So that's what's going on with that. And if you push it forward, then poof, and off she goes. I said this was a Grenadier's gun. That can be told by this copper winding. Now this came in 3 different types. It came in a copper winding. It also was done with string, heavy string cord. You may see these wound with cord, but you don't see those that often because obviously cord is kind of perishable and it goes away. And the last of this is they have actually like a little aluminum band that bolts on. It's like 2 halves of a shell, clam shell, will come up from the top and the bottom, and you screw it together. So that's pretty cool. This gun does have the through bolt. I do not know if this is period accurate or not. I don't know if they had this kind of a bolt with these kind of hardness markings on it, but this one has a bolt just in back of the rear set of windings, the windings for the coil of wire that's here. And basically they would wind this tight, then they would lacquer it. They would fold one end of the wire underneath and then solder it, and then they would lacquer the whole thing. But this one also has the through bolt, which is not found on all of them. Anyway. Your standard sight, regular ramp type sight, nothing special about that. And then here towards the front of the gun, so the windings are in 2 spots. You'll find the first set of windings right in back of the sights, so between the receiver, the end of the receiver and the sights. And then the second winding is up on the forearm, up almost dead center between the middle barrel band and where the front barrel band would be. This empty spot here is where you would normally have a stacking ring, and on this gun the stacking ring does not exist. It hasn't been, the nub is there, but it has not been drilled through, and there is no stacking ring. And then of course below that, a little further forward, you find the bayonet lug and then the front of the muzzle. Now the reason these guns were reinforced was because there was an adapter that went here on the front of the muzzle, a big cup, and that cup was where the grenade round would be. And when you fired that, it put a huge amount of stress. The recoil was really bad, and it would crack the stocks, and it would cause the rifle to try to the metal parts of the rifle would try to separate from the wooden parts of the rifle, and that was not good. And that is why they wound these all together like that. Now, when we picked this gun up, we were looking at it. We couldn't really give it a good look because of the restrictions on how our pals in Wanenmacher are. You know, they usually lock the bolt down with a piece of. They usually lock the bolt down with a tie wrap, and you can't. It's hard to get a good look. We did shine a light into it, and we really couldn't see very well into it. Let me see if I can get it. I'm going to bring this over a little further. So just looking at it, just by shining a light into it, there we go. We saw what we thought was that it had been backbored. We thought we saw a ridge about 5 inches, 3 or 4 inches down from the end of the muzzle. But when I took an actual bore light, and shined it in there, I personally think that that's just dirt. I don't know if you can see that little ridge there, just where the light starts to shine through. You see that little ridge? I believe that's dirt. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take a cleaning rod and throw some rod down there. So if you give me just a second, I will throw some rod down there, and we'll see if that looks any different after I get done. Before I get started, I just want to point out that most of the time, unless I'm doing a shotgun, most of the rifle and pistol cleaning that I do, I use one of these clean bore gun cleaning rod, which are 22 to 45 caliber. They're not quite thin enough to get into a 17, but they're 22 to 45 caliber. They're good for rifles and handguns. And the reason I like them is because they assemble in parts. They assemble in segments. and you can actually buy extra segments. So when you get a military rifle, this is almost a carbine length, so this one doesn't count. But when you get an older military rifle that's like 30 or 40 inches long, you can just keep stacking the segments on this thing and get a rod that's long enough to do the job. I really like these. That's the advantage of them. The disadvantage of them is they are steel, so you have to be careful not to bugger up the end of the gun. If you on some guns you're not able to get to the back of the bore. On this one I will be able to, because I'll just pull the bolt out. But on some guns you do have to do them from the front of the gun, the muzzle end, and you should use a muzzle cap or protector to keep you from buggering up the end, because this is a steel rod. But I love these things. The other advantage of these is they pack down real small. As you can see, this is a fairly small package, and even with the couple of extra rod segments, this goes in a range bag just fabulous. So I actually have 3 of these, and I have 1 spare. I have 1 that I have in my cleaning area in my office all the time, and then I have the one that's in my box of one of my range bag. So these are not that I'm a shill for clean bore, but these things are great. And that's this one here happens to be a model number S170. If you're interested, you can get these on eBay. These are relatively inexpensive, and they're great. They're great little cleaning rods. Okay, so we've run a rod through it a couple times. It's not perfectly clean, but it's not too bad. And as you can see if I can get this to show up nice, you can see that there are grooves and lands running all the way to the front of the barrel, and that stepped area has disappeared. And the bore is actually not in terribly bad shape. The lands are strong. Lands and grooves look pretty good, so it actually might be a little bit of a shooter. Fun stuff. So we got lucky. We got a fairly nice barrel. Action is really smooth. Very nice action on this. Put this back in. Snap that down. Very nice. Of course, it does cock on close, so it is you got to give it a little oomph when you get to the end. But nice smooth action, barrel's in good shape, and there is one more marking on it, but it's kind of hard to see. It's here on the stock, and I assume it's a circle. There's a 24 in it. There's some kind of a cross-like thing in the middle, and there's some letters on the top like SO something or other. But I'll look that up and see what that means later on. And then on the back, the other side of the stock, there's just a big painted number 4. Don't know what that's. That's probably when they had it in the arsenal or whatever. It's probably just an arsenal number. All that kind of stuff. But actually, overall, not a bad looking little gun. It is. It could use some cleaning up, but it's still intact. It's got nice wood on it. There's not a lot of real big chips or dents, other than the stuff you'd expect from handling. Nice little gun. So anyway, that's our firearm from one of the firearms from J.M. Davis. I thought you might enjoy an Enfield Mark III Grenadier. Hope you enjoyed learn a little bit about this historical weapon, 100 years old this year. Happy birthday, buddy. And you guys have a great day. Bye-bye.